Welcome to Relationships on Reddit. In this series, we look at posts on Reddit. We'll check out some of the responses. I'll provide some coaching questions for exploration, as I would for a client who is in the situation. Then finally, I'll provide my commentary at the end of just being myself, unfiltered and unadulterated. Hi, I'm Janelle, the relationship coach behind The Successful Invisible. Check out my links below if you're interested in working with me for group coaching or one-on-one coaching. The goal of exploring these posts is to have you become more discerning, intentional, and successful in your dating and relationships. Let's jump into this Reddit post about honestly the wellness of a partner and how it can impact the quality of your relationship. Let's get into it. All right, I am here with an Am I the A-hole today? A little shake-up from what I usually do for my relationships on Reddit posts, but I figure this was a fun one. So, am I the a-hole for not writing vows for my wedding? So I, 33 male, just got married last weekend, and what was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives turned into this whole drama fest. And I really don't get why. My wife, Sarah, 30 female, and I have been together for 5 years. And I've always been a straightforward, no nonsense kind of guy. I show my love through actions, not words. I take care of her, I'm loyal, and I've always been there when she needs me. So when it came to planning the wedding, I didn't think writing vows was a big deal. We're busy people, and between work, wedding planning, and just life in general, I didn't really have the time or honestly the interest to sit down and write some long, sappy speech. I mean, she knows I love her, right? I don't need to prove it with words. I figured the wedding itself, the whole event, was enough to show my commitment. Plus, I've never been good with words. I'm more of an actions speak louder kind of guy. The night before the wedding, Sarah asked if I had my vows ready, and I just casually told her, no, I didn't write anything down, but I'll say something on the spot. She looked a bit surprised, but I didn't think much of it. I mean, we were about to get married. Why stress over some words when the whole point is that we're making a lifelong commitment? Fast forward to the ceremony. The officiant asked me to say my vows, and I just kind of winged it. I said something like, I love you, I'll always be there for you, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. Short, sweet, and to the point. Thought it was fine, but when I looked at Sarah, she had this crushed look on her face, like I didn't understand what the big deal was. She's getting the commitment, right? That's what matters. After the ceremony, she was quiet, and I could tell she was upset, but I didn't get why. Later, some of her friends and even a couple of mine came up to me saying I really messed up by not preparing vows, that I looked like I didn't care, and that Sarah deserved better. One of her bridesmaids even had the audacity to say I embarrassed her in front of everyone. I was like, seriously? We're married now. That's what counts, not some cheesy speech. When I talked to Sarah later, she said she felt hurt that I didn't put any effort into the vows and that it made me feel like I didn't care as much as she does. I told her that was ridiculous. I married her, didn't I? That's the ultimate proof of how much I care. Why should I have to spell it out for everyone else? Honestly, I think everyone's overreacting. The wedding was beautiful, and at the end of the day, we're married. That's what matters. I didn't see the point in making a big deal of a few words when I'm already committed to spending my life with her. But now I'm here because people are acting like I'm the worst husband ever for not writing vows. Am I the a-hole for not writing wedding vows because I didn't see the point when my actions should speak for themselves? Let's jump into a few responses to see what the responses were on Reddit. As we know, Reddit is pretty ruthless, which I love, so I'm sure people are going to rip him a new one. So Possible Bicycle 6864 says, you are so the asshole that I don't have human language to describe how much you were thoughtless and careless. If your wife looked crushed on your wedding day, you should not need Reddit to tell you that you effed up. Then New Link 5725 says, he'll be lucky if she doesn't get an annulment. Then Fair Type 5596 says, no, but don't you understand? She's getting a commitment. F the fact that married women actually have shorter lifespans than single women, and married men have longer ones. And she is probably the one who made most of the plans and will be doing so for the rest of his life. She's the only one who should be jumping for joy because she got the commitment, don't you know? All men are the price. She, all men are the price. She should have thanked him at the effing altar, shaking my head. General Relative 2838 says, writing my own vows wasn't for me or my husband either. We used the traditional vows and left it at that. In your case, however, you and your bride agreed to write your own vows. She asked you about it, and it doesn't seem from what you've written that you told her you had no intention of writing something meaningful. For someone as straightforward and no nonsense as you claim to be, that seems unfair. You should have communicated that you were uncomfortable writing the vows and wanted to use traditional ones. What you said at your wedding must have been pretty lackluster for people to comment on them. I find your claim not to understand why Sarah was hurt disingenuous because you said she looked crushed at the altar. You're the a-hole. Then Nan Lodwine said, that's a good point. I could imagine these three same sentences, spoken with great emotion by a tender groom with lots of eye contact and perhaps tears, coming off as very moving to others at the wedding. You didn't do the bare minimum and probably sounded as flippant in person as you do here. You're the a-hole. Club Bunny 984 said, you're the a-hole. You spent more time writing this post than you spent preparing this huge moment in your and your wife's life. Just what the hell? What the fuck? That Effect No 4122 said, yes, this. Then Individual I 1803 said, okay, damn, I didn't even realize this. Ouch, that hurts even more from the wife's perspective. You're the a-hole. Had McDo for dinner said, hey, you ignored her request to share some vows during the ceremony, but that didn't matter to you, right? You let her spout her vows in front of everyone, knowing that you had taken zero time, made zero effort to reciprocate. You made her feel like you just didn't give a damn, but that didn't matter to you, right? You're the a-hole, but that won't matter to you either, I imagine, because, hey, you married her, right? Simple Knowledge 6423 says, you're the a-hole. Writing your own vows is obviously something you'd agreed to. So being an actions talk louder than words kind of guy is a bullshit excuse. If you know you're not great with words already, you should have put the action into actually putting some time and thought into getting something prepared. I'm not surprised she's upset. You're an idiot if you don't seriously understand where you went wrong here. Then one C known as says, this was my first thought. If actions speak louder than words, this guy's words were, I love you and I will be there for you. But his actions were not doing the thing she asked him to do. So OP, which is she supposed to believe? Those words you said or your action which was not to write your vows? Moving on, we're going to jump into a segment that I like to call green flags and red flags. We basically look at the post that I just read through, and from a coaching perspective, I'm going to identify some of the green flags and the red flags to help you become a more informed and better person to date and better when you go out on your own dating exploits and adventures. All right, I'm trying to be positive here, so I'm going to pull out some green flags that, based upon what OP wrote, were evident in the post. Number one, consistent support and care. So OP does show or say that he has a lot of love for his partner, Sarah, and he's supportive through his actions versus his words. He claims that they have a strong relationship foundation after, they've been together 5 years. They're both grown. These aren't kids. These aren't even early 20-somethings. These are folks in their 30s. So he is spouting that in the post. Number two, straightforward communication. I have to say, I do believe OP is very straightforward and no nonsense. And that is very helpful in a relationship. So taking that at face value, it is important to have those skills because there's going to be honesty and open communication in this relationship, and which is beneficial in building trust and being able to build a future with someone. The third green flag is commitment to the relationship. Marriage is the ultimate commitment to a relationship in, Western society, pretty much in all societies, but into a romantic relationship ending in marriage. I didn't sense, as much as I don't like a lot of things he says, I didn't sense per se he didn't want to marry her, had hesitations. So even though he did not write his vows, the poster did seem, OP did seem like he had a commitment to the marriage, highlighting that the act of marrying is the ultimate demonstration of his love and commitment. So this underscores his belief that the relationship has a lot of longevity and potential to it. Now we're going on to some red flags, and I'm sure you all heard many of them. So the first one is there's just to be a seems to be a disregard for the partner's expectation. So OP, despite knowing that vows are important in a wedding, even if you've never been to a wedding, you know in weddings, Western weddings, that vows are important. And it does not seem that OP took the time and the consideration to say, hey, I need to write these vows. He could have used Chat GPT as a tool. He could have talked to some of his friends that are married and asked them for pointers. Hell, there are even services out there where he could have Googled and found a way to write some vows that still are, authentic to him, but would have been really nice in the ceremony. So he really didn't consider his partner's expectation or desires for a more personalized commitment during the ceremony as an expression of his love. And to me, that's definitely a red flag on what's to come in the marriage. Second red flag I saw is a lack of empathy for his partner's feelings. So OP fails to understand why his wife was upset about him not preparing vows. And this is what I call willfully ignorant. He understands. I don't believe he's that stupid. He just doesn't care enough to acknowledge it from his pride and his ego perspective, so he's just not going to. So this is indicating a potential lack of empathy or unwillingness to see situations from his partner's perspective. This could lead to feelings of being undervalued or misunderstood in a relationship, and this is a really important thing to look out for in relationships. If your partner lacks empathy for your feelings and just you as a person, that's a lack of respect as well, and they just think they're more important to you than you. That is a recipe for disaster. A third red flag that I saw in this post, there was a defensiveness and dismissal of feedback. So after the ceremony, some of his wife's friends and even some of his friends came up to him about his lack of preparedness for the vows. So it must have been very glaringly obvious that he came and showed up like a high school jock not prepared for, an exam. And he reacted defensively because he just doesn't see the big deal. He keeps saying that. He is so far up his own ass in terms of ego. This defensiveness and this dismissiveness and lack of consideration is hindering effective communication. And what it's going to do is alienate his partner from him. He is not trying to strive for a healthy nonviolent conflict resolution here. He's just trying to sweep it under the rug. And there's going to be, like I said, a lot of unresolved issues and resentment. And this is just their wedding. This is just the official starting point, even though they've been together 5 years before now. So these are some definitely red flags that I really hope his new wife pays attention to in deciding if she wants this to be, happily forever after, or get this shit annulled and move on with her life. Now we're moving on to some coaching questions. These are the type of questions that I would ask in a session, during a coaching session with a client who is experiencing a similar situation to what I described in the Reddit post in their own dating lives. The purpose of these questions is to better inform you about your decisions in dating, gain more self-awareness, gain more awareness of other people's circumstances, and be prepared to pivot, move, and make wiser decisions. Question 1. How can the importance of verbal affirmations in a relationship be understood, especially when they seem less natural or comfortable to another partner? And vows really are, in essence, the perspective I'm asking this from is this affirming your love for your partner, for your spouse. That is what is a part of the wedding vows and the importance of that. And I definitely believe in the case of this Reddit story that was expressed to OP many times before they got to that altar, and he just waved it off and dismissed what Sarah wanted. And, as I said in the red flags, that's definitely going to lead to problems in their future. Question 2. What might be the impact on a partner when expected relationship rituals like vow writing are not met? And how can these impacts be addressed? I think that in the case of this Reddit story, they, if Sarah really wants this thing to go forward, there's going to have to be some very hard, uncomfortable conversation she's going to have with OP. And the impact of not having those discussions is going to be a lot of unspoken resentment that's going to build up. Now, I believe for this couple, as well as if you are experiencing this yourself, getting an independent third party that's neutral, like a relationship counselor, a marriage counselor, getting them from the beginning of your marriage is such a vital tool and key. Think about it. When there's anything else in life we don't know how to do, we hire somebody for it. You'll hire a personal trainer. You'll hire maybe a nutritionist. You know what I mean? You'll hire a tutor if you're, going for some type of exam. You will hire people who have more knowledge than you in an area to help you out. And I believe more people need to be proactive about that for marriage. In this case, this is a great first thing to bring up in their first marital counseling session as newlyweds, because I think it's going to uncover a lot. Think about how this applies to you and your relationship. Question 3. How can one balance personal preferences with a partner's expectations in important life events to foster a supportive relationship environment? In the terms of this Reddit post, one thing that could have really been fostered early on or really been brought up early on was when the discussion, probably months before the wedding, probably when they first started planning, that the vows, they were going to write. I believe OP could have been honest with Sarah about maybe him not being comfortable or him being the greatest writer, and maybe even asked her, hey, do you have any ideas of where I could go to help me with this task? I believe if that would have been communicated very early on with enough time to get, all his ducks in a row, this would have still turned out to be very beautiful. He didn't do that. He made a gross assumption, or rather dismissal, of what she wanted, and it ended like this. But I feel that communication is the key, and then early communication. So if you are in a relationship and you want to understand how to balance personal preferences with a partner's expectations, communication, clear, concise communication, early communication, effective conflict resolution, nonviolent, is important as well. So keep these things in mind, because this is a very realistic scenario that can happen to pretty much anyone. Question 4. In what ways can discussions about relationship expectations be approached to ensure clarity and mutual understanding well before critical milestones? I believe when you have people who seem to have very different modes of communication, which I'm sensing with OP and his wife Sarah, is everyone needs to have very clear objectives of what they want out of the discussion. It could be 1, 2, or 3 things. We don't want a crazy list, but try to keep it very clear, like what you want out of the discussion. Doesn't mean it'll happen in one discussion, but at least it will help keep you all focused on the situation at hand, or, what you're trying to do together, or what you're trying to compromise on, whatever the case may be. And if they would have had a conversation early, way before the wedding, OP, it was his job to bring it up and he didn't do it. If that would have happened, this whole thing would have turned out way better. Question 5. How can someone who prefers to show love through actions also incorporate meaningful verbal expressions to meet their partner's emotional needs? So in this Reddit story, or Reddit post, the case could have been that OP not only found someone to help, meaning not his wife, meaning his friends, paid a professional, what have you, to write his vows. He could have had a more visual component, you know what I mean, to have as a part of his vow, since he's such an action-oriented person, per what he says. And I think that would have helped him really make his mark as an individual about it, etc. I think it would have been really cool for the congregation of the people to see as well when he went to say his vows after she had spoken hers. So an example of that could have been something like, a violin player play something soft and specific to him to say his vows to. You know what I mean? It's small, but she would have noticed it because it's her wedding day. And it would have been vows that were authentic, coming from him, but written well. And so it was honoring her and honoring their wedding day. Now let's jump into a section that is just my thoughts. I want to give you my unadulterated feedback on this. I answered the questions in the last section, but definitely just to go a little more into this particular area and some kind of words of wisdom for the ladies out here who are in these dating streets, especially on these apps, trying to really navigate and do the best and safest thing for themselves. All right, short answer on this one. This guy is a total a-hole. A 33-year-old grown man who doesn't understand why he needs to put effort into writing his vows on his wedding day is not serious about that woman. He keeps, OP, the original poster in the post, was acting like, well, I'm making the commitment, aren't I? To me, it's like giving a woman a shut up ring. Like, you're doing this under duress. You're doing this because you have to. You're not doing it because you want to. This was so sloppily and poorly done. I really hope his new wife takes this as who he is. See, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And when you are an adult, he's 33. His mind, his brain is fully developed. He didn't give a shit about her. He doesn't give a shit about their marriage. And he will put that much shitty effort into it. Like, I am really irritated at this one. And that's why I wanted to do this one. Do not take this subpar, trifling behavior. This 33-year-old man, I can guarantee you, puts more effort in preparing for a job interview, especially if he's a professional. So, going to the next level, being prepared, looking the part, etc., than he put into his wedding vows. He does not want this woman in sincerity. He is who, she is who he settled for because he can't get something better, and she's already hung on for 5 years. It's atrocious. It's unacceptable. And if I was Sarah, the woman he married, I would annul this marriage. I wouldn't make it a year. This man is never going to put effort into it. Who the F doesn't put effort in on their wedding day and writing their vows? He embarrassed himself. He embarrassed her. He embarrassed her in front of her family. Like, he should be slapped. Like, it's, I'm appalled because this isn't a kid. This is a grown ass man who did that. And ladies who hear this and really hear my passion in this, I want you to understand that if a man marries you and says 3 whole sentences for his wedding vows, he doesn't want to marry you. He's grown. He is totally insincere. He is giving you some very superficial, surface level bullshit that he is saying in church. And he's trying to not make it a big deal because he knows he didn't care. And he can't say that. Now, I'm going to get, now some of the comments, as I read through them, you see people were ripping him a new one. But this is unacceptable. I really hope that him and his wife do not have children anytime soon. And I really believe, to me, this was like the straw that breaks the camel's back. I believe he's been this nonchalant and not caring of their relationship for a long time. But I think now she can't ignore it because he has done it. He has embarrassed her in public. He's done it in recorded video. And it's just appalling and unacceptable. So if you ever have a man with this type of energy dating you, don't marry him. Because this shitty attempt that he put in, or non-attempt he put into his vows, this is exactly what he's going to put into being a partner. This is exactly what he's going to put into being a parent. This is exactly what he's going to put into anything that involves her because he doesn't really want to be there. She's just a good wife. She's not the wife he wanted. So do not ignore behaviors like this. Nonchalant is not acceptable. Thank you for joining me today for this episode of Relationships on Reddit. Watch this video again. Answer the question several times. It's okay. Let me know your thoughts around my thoughts on some of the questions as well. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. The more we can have these conversations amongst ourselves with one another, with other women, the more we can gain the insights we need to gain to date in a more intentional manner and in a safer, more effective manner. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, check out the links below in the description box. Also, check out my podcast, The Successful Invisible, next season, publishing soon on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Until next time, this is your relationship coach, Jane L, signing off.